So we're gonna start the question and answer section. So I
Okay.
got a couple of people actually submitted some questions, so I am just gonna
Okay.
read
Cool.
them really quick.
Okay.
Let me just. Anna Biller is meticulous when it comes to her aesthetic choices. Does this carry over into her directing in general, or were you encouraged to improv?
That's a really good question. Her sets and a lot of the activity on the sets are definitely controlled. But that's just because she needs to sort of get the image right and set the scene and make sure that actors are sort of protected to do intimate stuff or challenging stuff. But there wasn't a ton of improv on the set, but there was some. I noticed that in some of my flashback scenes, some of the White Horse picnic scenes with Elaine, I improvised, sort of these, um, they're almost like these, they're sort of like these R&B love song, one-liners that I kept
Oh,
throwing at Elaine, and I wasn't doing it to be funny. I just thought that I think they were so weirdly idealized in those scenes, and my guy is such a sociopath that to him it seemed
oh.
really natural. My only fear was that Anna was really going to hate it. And so, it's not in the movie. It's in the special features, I think, but it's not in the movie. So who knows? Maybe she did. I don't know. But that was my bit of improvisation. But from what I understand, there was very little. It was really quite a, it was a stick to the script kind of thing. So yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense that, I mean, Anna is so meticulous. It makes a lot of sense. So, did you ever eat the cake that was in the Love Witch? There's a big, giant, like, kind of white cake, and people are asking about the cake.
The cake, I know, the big cake, the Renaissance scene cakes, right? That's in the Renaissance scene.
There are a couple of
Uh,
different cakes.
there's a bunch of different cakes. Cakes are art. Look at the art of what's his name, Wayne Thiebaud, the '60s pop artist. Oh, he did tons of paintings of cakes and obsessed on these things. And Anna's an artist, and maybe she has a different reason to like them than that guy, but. I didn't get a chance to eat the cake. I do like cake. I don't eat it that often because I'm a vegan. It's hard to find good vegan cakes, but I understand it was amazing. And I don't. The only person I think who may have spit it out in between takes is Gian because he was in such awesome shape in that movie.
Um,
Really takes good care of himself. So
Good for
he may have done a like a in between takes, but he probably still knows that it tasted good though because he got it in his mouth. So I didn't though, unfortunately.
him. What was it like working with Samantha Robinson, being that she was just in Quentin Tarantino's movie, and this was like right before she wound up being in that? What was it like working with her, if you don't mind me
Sam's
asking?
great. Sam's a really great actress, and she's really. I know that she spent a lot of time with Anna long before we got involved, before the dudes got involved. Um, and she had done a few films. I think she did a TV movie and a few other things. And she's well trained too. So if you haven't done it and you're trained, you can pick up and do it on camera, and she did. So it was really cool working with her. I noticed that as a character actor, I sometimes stay in character when I'm on set. It doesn't mean that I'm a brutal, horrible person to the people around me. It just means that my brain is sort of in that mode, that location, the activity of what my character's doing, and I sort of think a lot about it. And I think that she did. That's when she wasn't engaging with Anna or with somebody about maybe coverage or a camera angle or makeup or something like that. She was, and I could see it right away. I was like, oh, okay, this is someone who's really crafted a role, not as just running through the scene. So I gave her this space to do it, and sort of reacted to her on the day. I didn't really talk a lot to her between takes, and I think that's generally the right thing to do for people who are in that mode that I often find myself in. That I wasn't so much in this movie because I'm not in much of the movie, but yeah. So she was as I said, cagey because she's got good actors protect their secrets, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also very very magical and very connected to the role. I mean, a role like that that's such a psychopath, sociopath. There's some. I believe that there's some dream, some unbelievable, unreachable ideal or goal that they've created in their mind based on some trauma or some other thing. That to sort of watch them stare out over the horizon to try to discover that or find that is really remarkable. And an actor that does it has to do that believably, whether they find it in themselves or some other thing in the script. And she did that. So when I say magical, it's not just like she's a wonderful and magical actress. It's like she's really trying to find the rainbow that sociopaths are looking for. That sometimes um, they're broken up in certain movies. So she was great. I loved it.
Yeah, and I would just like to kind of comment and like add on to a little bit of that question and just say I feel like there are some movies where like directors like find the new stars of the future, and I feel like The Love Witch is going to be one of those movies where they just
Yeah.
find like the stars of tomorrow, like people who are
You know,
just
I
ready.
I'm with you. I'm totally with you. And I believe that's true about Sam. We're really lucky that a lot of great directors like this movie. Steven Soderbergh is a huge fan of the movie. David Fincher is a really big fan of the movie, who I was very lucky I got to work with years ago. And Quentin Tarantino clearly loved the movie, as much for the genre as for the performances and understanding how you weave these very um, crafted performances into this kind of movie. And he understands that performers that have experienced that can do what he needs them to do in his movies. And so, yeah, I think you're right. I think a couple little stars are gonna sneak out of this. So get
Like
ready.
more than a couple. So a little cinematography question.
Yes, yeah.
Were there vintage cameras used to get the look of the film, or was there just color adjustment in post? It's a weird
That's a
one.
great question. It's the director of photography, the Emmy Award winning David Mullen, who is, in my opinion, one of the best, and I've had the luxury of working with a couple of really great DPs. And he did shows like The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel and The Astronaut Farmer and all these really amazing projects. So his work is remarkable. And um, from what I understand, they shot in contemporary 35 millimeter cameras and shot in 35 millimeter stock. There are only so many varieties of 35 millimeter stock available. There are very few. You can count them on like a hand.
Yeah.
So the goal was to do as much in camera as possible. The optical effect of Elaine's face multiplying a bunch of times and a couple of other dream sequences. Those were done with filters and lens
Oh
caps and
wow.
squims and all kinds of things like that. But ultimately, because it was made today and it was distributed today, it had to go through a digital intermediary process and was scanned and digitized and colored or color corrected or color adjusted for what Anna wanted. So it's a little bit of both, but a lot of stuff was done in camera. So
Wow.
yeah, which is pretty cool.
I would have never suspected that. That's an amazing question. I
Good
would have
question.
thought that so much would have been done in post. So that's just thank you for going and putting that question out there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And final Q&A question um is a lot of aspiring actors out here. A lot of people are asking, what is your process like for preparing for a role, Stephen?
That's a great question. I'll do a quickie compare and contrast. So years ago, when I did the Craven remake, Chaos, I played a meth addict who was a petty criminal and a killer, and I studied those people. I looked for those people, whether it's a record of those people, whether it's meeting someone who seemed really like whose life seemed to head or already be in that direction. And you look at sort of why they do what they do as much as I look at their behavior in real time. What do they do right now? I might not be able to express a chunk of their recent or ancient history. That's almost impossible in film. You sort of follow the action. And so I want to know, what is their behavior like? Do they, for that movie, a lot of the characters, or a couple of the characters, did something called punding, which is it's a sort of this hyper dexterous thing that meth addicts do, where they repeat actions, let's say in their
Huh.
hand or their neck or whatever it is. They're sort of keeping a beat. They're so psyched up and jazzed up with drugs. Their body's keeping them a beat. It keeps them calm because it's sort of surging through their body, and it probably helps them from doing horrible things like picking at drug scabs and doing other
Yeah.
disgusting things like that. So to learn about those things is important to understand the clothes they wear, how they wear them, how they react in a certain location because of their own personal fears or wants or likes. And then once you're done all that stuff, since I'm not going to rape and kill anybody,
Thank goodness.
right? That's where I draw the line.
Yes.
Since I'm not going to do that, I take all of those things and I sort of roll those into what I think amounts to character, and I try to react to the imagined circumstances in the scene based on all of those things that I keep close. And like I said before, I try to play people I don't understand because I want to understand them. I want to learn more about them. I want to not be afraid of them. I want audience members to get a little closer, even if they should always steer clear of a killer, which you should. So
Yeah. I feel like you truly allow people to like get to know the humanity in your characters, where a fair amount of them seem to, where some of them, I wouldn't even say a fair amount, some
yeah,
of
yeah,
them can be some like scoundrels or maybe on the wrong side of the tracks, but I feel
right.
like you allow people to really know the humanity involved in there.
I try to, you do as much as you can, and then, depending on what your character does or how critical they are to the story or different act structure, different acts, that can be revealed. Some of it can be cut out. So you try to make sure there's evidence of it everywhere without overacting.
It's a tricky
So that
balance.
it shows up someplace on camera, in the film. So
So, thank you so much for joining us, Stephen. I would
you're welcome.
also really love to mention your fine artwork and how, like, so engaging. I found it, like, incredibly engaging.
Well,
I
thank you very much.
I really loved it. I love the use of, like, natural materials. And can you explain a little bit about your methodology in your art and your chosen materials?
Yeah, absolutely. I have been, I've worked uh, creating art for a long time. Years and years ago, I went to art school and I have a degree in fine arts with a background in art history, and made a lot of it until I got involved in my work as an actor, and I took a lot of time off from it. So um, the stuff that I do is pretty minimal in form, but it's kind of loaded with um, sort of the accoutrement or the stuff that that surrounds us, are the what amounts to the interior design of our lives, or at least the suburban lives that
Hmm.
sort of allude to in my work. And they're very symmetrical. I think some of them are beautiful. Some may think they're not, but they sort of, in some ways, I think one reviewer said they sort of act as a place to like a place to either cleanse the palate of your soul, or as a place to defocus on the identity that has been developed by the things and the stuff that's around you. Your initial relationships are generally developed at home, and just the
Yeah.
person that comes out of that is developed at home, and we all attach fixed memories to a lot of these objects and these things that show up in my work. So it's sort of about that. Hopefully, that's not too abstract, but the work is so.
No, I don't think it's abstract at all. I think it's very interesting that you find materials from suburban life and you kind of, I think I'm about to use the wrong word. I'm about to say repurpose, but that's almost the wrong word for it. Almost recontextualization.
Yeah, it's recontextualized. I mean, I use all new stuff. None of it's found objects. A lot of artists like to use found objects, and that's good because it comes charged with that history and that meaning. And I go out of my way to make them look, newer than brand new, unused
Yeah.
kind of thing. Just and they're never, the stuff that I feature is never what's currently hip in interior design. It's
Hmm.
always 5 or 10 years out or 15 years out. It's not super retro, kitschy, cool like from the 60s or 70s, and it's not 2020. It's this other murky period that you're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah, I think that reminds me of that thing that I grew up with, or I think
Yeah.
it's that other period where you're sort of like, is it attractive? Is it not? Is it, is this a memorial to something? Is this kitschy? And it's neither of those. It's this place in between. So
To learn more about Stephen's fine artwork, I would highly, highly recommend checking out his website, Stephen Wozniak Art, or his Instagram at Stephen Wozniak Art. If you're interested in checking out which roles Stephen has next for film and television, check out www.stephenwozniak.com or at the Stephen Wozniak.
you're so welcome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to talk about this very, very special movie. It's touched a lot of people, and I think we'll continue to do so. So thank you.
Yeah.